The holidays aren't about where you're going. They're about the moments you share along the way. Experience the joy of connection at the Lincoln Wish List sales event. Right now, visit your local Lincoln retailer or Lincoln.com to find exclusive holiday offers on current and past Lincoln models. Let's make more connections and more joy this season.
Travel is all about choosing your own adventure. With your Chase Sapphire Reserve card, sometimes that means a ski trip at a luxury lodge in the Swiss Alps with a few of your closest friends. And other times, it means a resort on a private beach with no one else in sight. Wherever you decide to go, find the detail that moves you with unique benefits at hand-selected hotels from Sapphire Reserve. Chase, make more of what's yours. Learn more at chase.com/Sapphire Reserve.
Cards issued by J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC. Subject to credit approval.
All right, let's welcome to the Misfit Nation candidate for Texas 28 Congressional District, U.S. Air Force veteran Eric Hohman. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad we finally connected.
Me too. There's a game of, I guess, the new age of tag. We used to do it on cell phones and play phone tag. Now we played Zoom tag for probably a couple weeks here. But we got this thing together, and I'm glad I'm able to get your story out as you're starting your run for Congress there in the Congressional District 28 of Texas, which is, I believe, the San Antonio area. So if you'd like to, please tell the Misfit Nation a little bit about yourself from as far back as you want to go. If you want to tell your whole story of how your family came and stuff, and then why you love America and became a Air Force, a Security Forces, Security Forces Emergency Response guy, and then air combat controller. It seemed like you like to do everything in the Air Force. So just tell us the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give your audience a quick synopsis or cliff notes if you guys are old enough to remember what those things were.
Doubt it.
those were lifesavers, man, when I was going through high school. But yeah, so I was born in Mexico City. Both my parents Mexican, and my father at the time was a very talented jeweler. So he was pursuing the American dream. He came over to the U.S. and was working for a guy here in San Antonio, Texas. So saved up enough money, brought my mother, my sister, and I back to San Antonio. And unfortunately, during the time that he was alone, he became an alcoholic, pretty bad dude towards my mom. And it's just you kind of hear that a lot, right? Just abusive and just a dick, to be quite open and open with you guys. So luckily, my mom had met someone. They got divorced, and my stepdad kind of picked it up, and I'm grateful for him. He adopted me. That's why I have a German last name, even though I'm 100% Mexican. And don't worry, man, I can speak Spanish, read it, write it. My mom actually talks to me in Spanish most of the time. So, so we, my parents busted their butts, and the number one goal was to become U.S. citizens. So, that is the American dream, right? You come to this country because of the land of opportunity and everything the country has to give you, but you have to work hard, and that's what kills me. It's just everybody wants a handout now. And it's just, you have to work hard. That's what made America number one. So became a U.S. citizen, grew up in San Antonio, played sports here at local high school, Lee High School, and graduated from there, went to Texas Tech University for 2 years. My parents didn't make over 40 grand. So and then I was having too much fun. I think my GPA at start, I'll share that with you. I think it was like a 2.75 or something. So my parents were like, there is no way we're paying you to do that. So the Air Force had come join the Air Force and we'll pay for a college degree. And I did. That's what I did. I didn't want to be in the military when I was young. I joined when I was 20. I just wanted to be a businessman. So I said, okay, I need a business degree, and this is the only way to do it. So when I came in, I joined Security Forces, and it was funny because my ASVAB, my recruiter, was actually a good guy. He said, "Man, you don't want to be a cop. Those guys work long hours. You're at a gate." And I was like, "No. I liked the way the beret looked." When I was at the recruiting office, they had a poster of a dude with a beret and an M16. It's like, I want to do that. And he's like, "You're an idiot." But anyway, so I joined that. And I was working on my degree. That's when online school started to happen. So I was doing that, and I was just deployed all the time. And shortly after that, 9/11 happened, and I re-enlisted. And I knew I wanted revenge. And I've said that before. I just I just wanted revenge for what they did to us, to what they did to our country. So I was going to get out and go either, the ones you hear about, right? The SEALs, the SF guys. I wanted to be on the front line. So luckily, or by the grace of God, I ran into my buddy Will, who was a combat control instructor. And he's like, "What are you doing? You're nuts. You stay here in the Air Force, the quality of life. You jump out of airplanes, you dive, you drop bombs, you shoot every weapon system the Department of Defense has. And at the end of the day, you have a great life. So you don't have to cross train to another branch." I was like, okay. So I looked them up. And again, the Air Force doesn't do a great job about advertising combat controllers. So the day that I was supposed to get out, man, I came home, and because I was living in San Antonio and at Lackland Air Force Base where I was stationed, and my parents had this big, thank God you're getting out of the military. It had balloons and stuff. And I walk in, and I tell my mom and my stepdad, I said, "Hey, I just re-enlisted. I'm gonna go into special forces. I'm gonna become a combat controller." And the Air Force has me another 4 years. And I remember my stepdad's like, "What? Like, you don't even like being dirty. You should be a banker somewhere." I was like, "I don't care. I want revenge, man." So yeah, I started that 2-year process, that 2-year pipeline. And man, let me tell you, that was a really, really rough pipeline. And I've said it before, the attrition rate is 85 to 90%. Out of the 20 guys I started with, only 4 of us made it all the way through where they were operational combat controllers. I'm glad. I mean, a lot of guys get washed out because they quit because it's tough or it's just injuries, or they just lose heart for it, and you just have to stick with it. It's a great career field. The best times of my life was being a combat controller and running with those guys that were combat controllers, and then you join other teams. When you go fight in Afghanistan, I met some great. Most of my time was with the ODAs, which are Army Special Forces teams. So I'm still in touch with those guys. I worked with a couple SEAL teams when I was up in Germany, and then once in Afghanistan. And then the pilots that are protecting us overhead, they're great. I'm still in touch with a couple of F-16 guys and Apache guys. So yeah, man, that's kind of the way it started. I just started going and finally getting my chance to sling some hate and putting some bad guys away with some of the teams. And I'm grateful. After that, my last deployment, I was with a young captain. He took over an ODA after the captain and the combat controller were injured in an IED. So I was working down in the south with a team out of Japan. It's 115, and we were closing that base down because at the time I was under the Obama administration. So we were giving back all that space back to the Afghans, right, to control their country, which was obviously, as it's a joke. So after those 2 guys got hurt, I got sent to Wardak province, which is up in the North Afghanistan. And I met Captain Andrew Peterson Keel, and he was his first command as a team leader for that ODA. And man, I love this guy. I mean, he was a kid. He's 28 years old when I met him. And we just, unfortunately, we got snowed in. By that time, it was winter season. So we got snowed in. We did a couple ops, nothing too major. And then I was going to go to our tier 1 team. I was going to go assess for that. And I returned home because my rotation was kind of the way the Air Force did. We overlapped so that way there was some overlap of controllers switching out with the team, so you get some continuity. And I left. And 2 weeks later, my team leader and that ODA, which was with 3126, they get in a green on blue and they get shot up pretty bad. And unfortunately, him, the squad leader, and our dog were killed there in that green on blue. So obviously, again, I wanted revenge. I was home in San Antonio, and my commander called me, and it just sucked, man. I told my mom, and I packed up my stuff and I left. I was on my leave, when you come back, and I walked to my commander's office, and I just told him I wanted to go back. All my bags were still packed in my cage, so I just need my weapon, my radios, and I was going to go be a shooter. I didn't even care about controlling aircraft. So he said no, and obviously my right shoulder was pretty torn up. It was pretty bad. My right shoulder, it was just from wear and tear. So he said, no, you need to have surgery on that shoulder. Then you need to go assess for the 2-4. and make it there, and then you can continue to fight at that tier 1 level. And it just took it out of me, man. At the time, Clinton was running, and I think most of the country thought that she was going to win. So I was like, there is no way I'm fighting under another Democratic president, especially this one. So I said, you know what, I'm out. I don't want to lose limbs. I can't protect my teammates because rules of engagement under the Obama administration sucked pretty bad. So I said, okay, I'm out. And at 15 years, I popped smoke. So it was, you got to have conviction, man. And I left, and it sucked. My transition was pretty bad. It was really, you come out of there and you think, well, I'm an operator. I had a bachelor's degree in business by that time. And I said, I'm gonna take this world by storm, and it didn't happen. A year later, those demons of war started creeping in, and you start figuring out that you can't find a job that you want, and people don't. And then the bad thing is I was fighting that other uphill battle that no one knew what a combat controller was. So when I would put that on my resume, people were just like, get the hell out of here. You don't do all this stuff. The Air Force doesn't have ground troops like this. And I've said it before, I got tired of telling people everything we did. So I said, you know what, just Google combat control, and I guarantee you it blows your socks off. So, and I've lost some good jobs, or I didn't get picked up because other people who were sitting on the boards picked the SEAL or an SF guy, and nothing against them. I mean, they have great name brand marketing, but combat control just doesn't. So I was just in a world of hurt, I felt pretty lost and forgotten. And luckily the VA doc, I went to see him because they do another assessment after you've been in combat to make sure that you're good. Because when you get out, you go and you do your medical assessment, and they're like, you got PTSD, blah, blah, blah. And I checked, no, I'm good. I had injuries, but I said no. And a year later, when those demons of war were creeping in, this doctor did his job, and Dr. Arneman was awesome. And he, there's this sheet you fill out that says, hey, how you feel the last 2 weeks? Are you happy? Are you sad? Whatever. And I would just check, yeah, I'm happy all the time, because I didn't want to lose my weapon. Those barrack lawyers would say, if you tell anyone that, you got some demons in your head, you'll never be able to carry a weapon, and you put it on this list, and that fear. So yeah, that's what I put. I said that I was super happy, and the doc, I thank God for this guy. He said, he's like, hey man, why don't you cut the bullshit? You're wasting my time. He said, everything on this piece of paper says that you're happy, but everything that comes out of your mouth, I could tell you're miserable. And it took some talking, but I finally admitted. I was like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong. I just don't feel the same. And he said, you're heavily depressed, and you have loss of purpose. Because I had terrible nightmares. I was just on these gunfights that I just could not get my weapon to work, and the enemy just kept getting closer. And even if I was shooting at him, the dudes wouldn't fall. So it was so realistic. And when he told me I was heavily depressed and PTSD and all that other stuff you hear about, I remember laughing at him. I was like, there's no way. That doesn't happen to operators. That happens to, people that just sit on the couch, watch Oprah, and eat bonbons. And he's like, no, that's happening to you, man. So it took some help, and, friends and family, and God, and going to church. And I've told people I used to sit at the first pew of my church and just look up at the crucifix that they had, and I just continue to ask God, like, why are you punishing me? Like, what have I done that why didn't you kill me on the battlefield, or let me switch places with one of those guys? Because I just felt it was a terrible joke that it was being played on me, that that I was here and I was miserable, and I just couldn't understand why. And it took some time, and you just got to stay in the fight. And luckily now you fast forward 9 years, and yeah, man, I started getting ahead of it, and I'm sitting in a good spot. I started a nonprofit after my buddy Chris Rush. He was my first supervisor as a combat controller. Skinny kid. He always had a dip in. We guys get away with dipping all the time on base, right? And no one knows who you are. We're always in civilian clothes, and I love this dude. I'll tell you a quick story. He on my first deployment with him as an operational controller, he was sitting across the helicopter from me, and I had sunglasses on. He had sunglasses on. And in my head, I was going through, like, okay, do I have all my ammo? Do I have all the radio frequencies plugged in? Do I have the crypto on my radio so I can talk to aircraft? You're just going through all this stuff in your head. This first deployment, and And he's just kind of looking at me. We land, you know, we were on a 46. We land and he's helping me unload all these bags. And you know, my ODA that I'm joining, they're looking at me, you know, like, oh, who's this new guy? And I'm unloading my bags in the peripheral. I'm seeing my ODA just kind of staring at me, like, okay, this is the guy we're getting. And the helicopter rotors are still going, and Rush leans over. He's like, all right, man. He's, you know, don't suck and don't die. I'll see you in 6 months. And that was his advice to me. And I was like, okay. And then he leans in again. So I was like, okay, maybe that was his funny advice. Now he's going to give me something good. He's like, if things get really bad, just crawl on a ball and start crying, and the man with a gun will come save you. And then he hops back in the helicopter and then takes off. And I was like, all right. I turn around and I was like, well, here goes nothing, you know. That was Chris Rush, man. And yeah, so he did 20 years, gets out, moves to Florida, you know, 2-3. We have a 23rd Special Tactics Squadron down there, and we have a bunch of controllers that are going through training, guys that are stationed there, guys that just retired there. And you know, he the demons of war, and I think the pain he was going through, and I think he felt alone and maybe forgotten, and he didn't want to bother any of us, man, and he took his own life, and that was that hurt a lot of dudes, because he not only was he my first supervisor as a controller, but then he went and taught a lot of guys in close air support down at the schoolhouse. And, you know, and then obviously as he climbed in rank, he was managing some teams down at the 2-1, which is in Pope, and then the 2-2 in McCord. So, yeah, that crushed, it's a heavy blow anytime we lose a combat controller, because I don't know if you know, I mean, there's only about 300 dudes to 400 guys per year active that can go sling, you know, some rounds downrange. So anytime we lose one of our guys, especially like that, it's a big blow to our community. So after that, it just set my soul on fire, and I wanted to let the world know what a combat controller is, and I wanted his nieces and nephews and his family know how great this dude was. So I started a nonprofit called First Air Foundation, and yeah, our goal or my goal is to help combat controllers and their families, and kind of start building that community before another tragedy strikes, because you've seen it. I mean, anytime we all get together is when someone died, you know, and that's not good. For being such a small community, we should be getting together. And
that's just like our families. If we lose someone in our family, it's usually the first time we see people in years.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, oh, I love you, but bro, I've been with you my whole life, and you never even call me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that we just take for granted. You know, we think, I guess they're always going to be there, or oh, I'll call that guy later. Yeah. So I started that fuse, and then I was living in Austin. I was seeing how Austin. I used to love Austin, man. It was just such a clean. It was just. I mean, there was always homeless problems and trash, just like any other major city. But going back this last year, it was just falling apart, man. It's just god awful, dude. And I think even people on both sides are starting to see that it doesn't work. So I was going to run for mayor, and then every consulting group I talked to, they're like, "There's no way you're turning that city red." And it's like, well, I don't even care about that. I just want it to be back to where people feel safe and they can run down the parks and not step on needles, or see people shooting up, or, you know, taking a crap on the middle of the field where you have little kids playing, you know? So I said, okay, so where's the point of friction? So, you know, with this current administration, I said, okay, well, the point of friction is the border, right? We need to protect the border. We need to keep our families and our values safe. So I said, okay, I'm gonna run for Congress. And I just jumped into it like a night halo jump, man. The ramp is down, it's dark, and I'm just jumping into it. I had to quit my job, and you know, I put my house up in Austin or my condo up for sale or for rent in Austin, and I have another house here in San Antonio where my mom lives, and I'm crashing here until I can get in there, dude. So it's just like another major deployment. You know, you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants, and yeah, making it work. You know, if you see some of my posts on LinkedIn or whatever you follow me on, if you follow me, it's you know, every day at 5 a.m. I'm up, got to take care of your body, you know, do a little praying, and then after that, it's in the campaign. And that's why I feel so bad, man. We've missed each other the last few times, but I'm glad we're getting here to talk, and hopefully people can relate. And the reason I'm open about the troubles that I went through is because I think there's a lot of guys that are kind of experiencing that and they just don't realize it. And, now with the Afghanistan debacle that we had,
Nice.
the withdrawal that a lot of guys are out, so I think once they start seeing how the civilian world is, it's going to be rough. And I want to make sure that our boys are taken care of, or men and women, obviously, but specifically for me, combat control, because it's such a small career field. So yeah, man, sorry, I said cliff notes, but that was kind of long.
You're a little passionate about your story. And that's awesome. That's what you need to be at right now, especially with what you're trying to do right now to try to make a difference for Congressional District 28. And of course, it's your home state now. It's your home state, your country. You're trying to make a difference. You rattle off a lot of things that are issues for almost every military serviceman and woman that's coming out now: PTSD, depression, losing that sense of purpose. That right there leads to the other two getting worse, the spiral. I worked for a nonprofit when I first got out. Actually, a year after I got out, I took a year to find a job. Just like you, no one knew what I did, or they thought I wanted a lot of money. I just wanted a job. And when I finally got a job, I was able to mentor veterans. And actually, that was my area. Texas was central region, so Texas was a big population for me. I went to San Antonio. It was my first event, and I loved it down there. I still have a lot of friends down there that actually have nonprofits that help veterans. So I'll send you some of their stuff after this. And
yeah, please do.
But there's so many of our brothers and sisters that go through that spiral, and to have you come on here as someone that's trying to lead in our nation and show that you're vulnerable as well, and say, yeah, I had this issue and I'm tackling it through these methods, and staying busy is one of them, but also prayer, physical fitness, and then getting your head wrapped around it and helping others through the First Air Foundation. I think everything you're doing is spot on with what needs to be done to help you. Now, as you spin that to go help to Texas 28, what's your motivating purpose now? What's your number one goal for Texas 28?
Yeah, I mean, I love Texas, American first, but you know how we Texans are,
I know.
Anytime you meet someone from Texas anywhere in the world, you're like, great. It's like you guys have been brothers forever. But no, my goal is obviously we got to secure the border, man. And we have to, I'm all about immigration because I'm an immigrant, but we have to do it the right way. Just the constant flooding of, I've heard different news outlets, 2 million people that just flooded through the open borders. You can't have a country without borders. And then the other thing is, I'm sure a lot of people are fleeing persecution, right? And I understand that, but at the same time, it's got to be done the right way. And unfortunately, a lot of these cartels are the ones making money. And then if this administration doesn't actually do something about it, those are the only people getting wealthy. And then they're selling these people to human trafficking, the drugs, all the weapons, all the stuff it's hurting America. And for the life of me, I can't understand why they're just not. I don't know if it's out of spite for Donald Trump that they're just said, that was his policy, so therefore we're not going to do it. And now that they're finally doing it, it's still very slow moving. They've handcuffed the men and women of law enforcement down there. The rules of engagement, they're got their hands tied behind their back, and if they try to do anything, they get prosecuted. So it's like, why would you do something if you know that your administration is going to destroy you? So what I want to do is obviously you got to get on the ground with those folks and figure out what they need and let them have it. Give them that back and support. But yeah, Texas 28, being the point of friction, I want to be able to secure that. And then the law enforcement, San Antonio is part of the district, the northeast side, and some of the cities and counties they're in there. And we have to back law enforcement, man, because if you don't, you've seen it. We've been to other countries where there is no law enforcement, and it's just chaos. And even some of our allies, look at England. England kind of has the same, let everybody come in and everything's good. There's no weapons. I think their law enforcement finally is carrying some weapons, but I believe it's East London. Don't quote me on that, but there's parts of it where it's run by Sharia law. Even though it's in England, the British cops can't go in there. It's run by their own. It's like our own little country within England, and that just blows my mind that they let that happen. So, we have to back our law enforcement. I know the other side uses, whether you agree with me or not, a lot of the other side uses, cops are abusing their power and they try to divide us and would say they're racist, and that's not true, man. With law enforcement, whether you're a police officer, a doctor, a lawyer, scientists, whatever profession, there's good people and there's bad people, and you can't just clump everybody in the same thing, man. So
Right.
those are my two major ones. Obviously, I'm against vaccine mandates. I think people should feel the ability to do that, but it's your own safety, so you should be able to make that decision and go from there. And I wish those doctors would get in one room and come up with an actual, like, hey, this is the virus, this is what's happened, because depending on what you watch every day, it just continues to flip-flop. And that Fauci guy, I mean, I know he's the highest paid guy, and there's probably a reason he's getting his pockets lined by someone, and he just changes with the wind. So I think American public on both sides of that will be like, all right, just tell me what this thing is. Obviously it exists, but let's just all get together and figure this thing out. It's just like we put a man on the moon and we can't figure this out. It just blows my mind.
And he's definitely been in, we always talk about term limits for congressmen and senators, but no one ever has said a word about him being in that same seat since almost the 70s. He's been there forever. And so he's so big, he can't, if he fails, they think the whole world's going to fail. He has to have some kind of structure beneath him that he built. And
100%.
there has to be other growing scientists coming up through the chains that these medical schools bring out every year. And that he's wrong. And we've actually advanced that science, and I can do this too. So it has to be there.
Yeah. That guy is just, and he's purged himself under oath. So, I mean, if that would have been someone from the last administration, I mean, there's would have been in prison. Even now, they're still persecuting those guys. So this guy, they blatantly lies to the people. They're just like, okay.
It's all right.
This administration, the way it's the hypocrite. I mean, they're just hypocrites, and they only go at it when it's convenient for them. The rest of the time, they just ignore it and give the public something else to preoccupy themselves with, or they continue to throw stuff out there to divide us and fight against each other. And I said it at a meet and greet the other day. This is America. And when other countries back in history, when they go after our country, they divide and conquer. And that's what's happening. We're American, and we're forgetting that. And so, it just breaks my heart.
And like you said, they put the shiny object up to make you look over here while this hand's doing this over here. So we don't know exactly what they're doing, but we now in this digital age, we know everything they do as they do it. And it's just how you interpret whichever box you're listening to, whoever your voice is. That's you just got to interpret the truth from the gray area in there. And I hope when you do get elected, you're able to erase some of that magic stuff up there and make the swamp a little clearer. It's going to be, of course, the swamp's going to be there for a while, but the first term will be rough. It'll be an uphill swim. And I'm sure you'll make a lot of new friends and frenemies up there as you're trying to build Texas. And I know Texas has a bunch of veterans right now running. A few Navy SEALs are running new offices, along with Dan Crenshaw, who is embedded in office now in his second term. Hopefully all that wave goes through the rest of Texas and you guys come out the other side with that light on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I just hope the public, as they listen to you, I'm sure they're not all Republicans or whatever. And, I just hope that they do their research, right? Because the public has to take responsibility for that. When you don't vote or you don't research and and I get it, America's become a land of convenience, right? We want everything just told to us or pushed to us on our phone because we don't want to do our research. And I understand that people have busy lives, but you don't get out there and really look after, do your research and you just follow whatever, then you're a sheep. And I mean, us in the military, we say that, don't be a sheep, and it just blows my mind, man, that people just kind of get swayed so easily. And then that's what happens. They vote in someone, or maybe they don't vote. And the people that actually vote put these morons in office. And now the country's it's going downhill. So yeah, we got to all take responsibility for it.
And I think once we all start realizing if we clean our own house, your neighborhood will get better, community get better, the country will get better. Stop worrying about the name brand that's in the office that's been there for 40 years. Obviously, they're not doing something right there 40 years.
Oh, 100%, man.
So Eric, it's been great having you on here. When can people go out and vote? I guess your primary is coming up soon, probably. So when's that?
Sure. Early voting is Valentine's Day. So sure, people are like, do I do politics or do I take care of my loved ones? So I would probably encourage people not to go out there on the 14th unless you're maybe like me, single, and then you're just like, whatever. But it starts on the 14th, and then the primaries on March 1. So
First, okay.
Yeah.
How big's the field right now?
It's pretty wild. I mean, I'm glad to see that there's 6 other candidates running for the seat on the Republican side, and then there's 2 on the Democrat side challenging the incumbent. He's been there for I think 15 years, 17 years. So, so it's going to be good. It's a good battle district down here, and yeah, hopefully your guys support me and take a look at the website and kind of what I stand for, and help gain your support and kind of share my enthusiasm for change.
Awesome. What is your website, since you brought that up?
Yeah, sure. It's erichohman.com. So it's ERICHOHMAN.com. I'm on Facebook. If you look up Eric Hohman for Congress. Instagram. I don't have a TikTok because I have no clue how to do that. I was going to ask my niece and a buddy of mine that's kind of he's like, you got to get on TikTok. And I was like, dude, I have so many platforms right now. So if you're a TikTok user, I promise I'll get to it. It's just rough right now.
Yeah, you might need to hire like a 12-year-old or something to do that for you.
Yeah.
Just give them $20 a post or something.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's this age of technology, definitely good and bad.
Awesome. Eric, once again, the Misfit Nation, thanks you for coming on, and thanks you for all you've done for our country and what you're attempting to do now. We wish you luck in the primary and, of course, the general election.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and listening to me, man. I appreciate it. Anytime. Hopefully we'll have better scheduling for me, but yeah, so thank y'all so much. I hope everybody has a good day, and thank you.
Awesome.